Hello, everybody. It's a Friday night here on Outpost Unknown, and you know what that means. We're exhuming the X Files. My name is Matthew. Joining me once again is Jeremy.
Hey, everybody.
Now, tonight, we are talking The Jersey Devil. This is the second Monster of the Week episode. It first aired on October 8th, 1993. It was directed by Joe Napolitano and written by series creator Chris Carter. Before we dive into it, I just kind of want to give a shout out to a new subscriber on the channel, Joyoshi, who left a very nice comment on our episode, the pilot episode, regarding Deep Throat. And he mentioned Deep Throat was a very Slugworth type character, sort of Willy Wonka style, which I had not actually considered before. But I thought that was a pretty apt description of Deep Throat. Would you agree?
Sure. Sure, he
Oh,
comes across as that kind of slimy, but I don't know. Wasn't Slugworth in the end? Didn't he come around to being like a hired good guy?
yeah, he was kind of a good guy at the end. So he's set up as kind of the bad guy, the competitor to Willy Wonka. But it turns out it's just a test. Willy Wonka, he works for Willy Wonka, and he was just doing that to see if the children would sort of cave and sell the secrets of the chocolate factory. And Charlie Buckets did not. So good on Charlie Buckets. So, yeah, like I said, we're talking Jersey Devil tonight, and well, let's just get right into it. I'll toss it to you. What's Jersey Devil all about?
Well, it start or I mean, do I talk about their take on the Jersey Devil or I don't know.
Well, we could talk a
The
little bit about what the Jersey Devil is, I guess, traditionally.
Okay, so I I remember that the Jersey Devil is like I don't know, New Jersey's version of the Loch Ness monster. It's supposedly like a winged demon creature that haunts the woods out there and
Yeah.
like knocks cars off roads, takes people in the woods and stuff like that. And
Hmm.
I remember when I first saw this episode as a kid, I'm like, holy shit, they're diving into the Jersey Devil. But I think they just used that name now that I'm much older because this seemed to have nothing to do with the Jersey Devil lore at all.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm gonna get into that as part of my notes when I watched this episode as a kid and even today as an adult watching it. The disappointment I had when I kind of found out what the I guess monster is. We'll get to it as we get there. But I do think it's kind of interesting. Like when I was a kid, I was very disappointed in this episode. What it turns out to be, because spoiler, it's not a winged sort of demon devil out in the woods. As an adult, I look at it, I still don't really like that they went this direction with it, but I guess I can kind of respect it on a creative level that Chris Carter was trying to do something a little different. But considering we had aliens and monsters in the four episodes before, this this one wasn't great in my opinion. I wasn't happy with the way they creatively went this way. But what's the general setup of this? Why are Mulder and Scully looking into the Jersey Devil?
Okay, so sometime in the past, I can't remember exactly what year it was, but some guy got found, or some guy loses a tire, like a Christmas story. He goes out to change it in the middle of the night, but instead of the kid like helping him and dropping it and dropping an F bomb, instead, dad just gets drug off into the woods and eaten
Yep.
partially by something that we never actually end up seeing. Some guys find his body, some cops, some rangers and stuff. They end up cornering some sort of something in a cave and just lighting it up or ended up killing it. So many years later, the this cannibalism stuff starts again, but
Yeah, homeless
it,
people in Atlantic City are being eaten.
yeah, by human teeth. And the way that it starts is like, wow, there's this tremendous like humanoid monster running around,
Yeah.
taking bites out of people and stuff. Like because people are dying very quickly to this creature, whatever it is. And then, Mulder and Scully show up and hijinks ensue.
Yeah, yeah. There were some high points to this episode that I did quite like. One of the things is early on, again, the banter between Mulder and Scully really starts working well in this episode. I think there's that moment early on where Scully goes into Mulder's office and Mulder has like the Playboy opened or whatever. He's reading some sort of porn mag, and he makes the joke about, hey, this woman claims that she was taken away in an anti-gravity machine, and Scully's like, anti-gravity indeed, sort of establishing Mulder's love of porn, which pops up throughout the entire series. There's funny stuff like that. I like that Scully kind of like brings the case to Mulder, which I thought was interesting because she actually walks in and she tells him about this, this case in Atlantic City where some homeless person was gnawed on like cannibal style. And then basically when Mulder goes, "Ooh, this seems exciting," she's like, "Actually, it's not in our jurisdiction." It's like that's kind of a mean thing to do, but Mulder's like, X file. I have an X file on this, which is great because this kind of establishes throughout the series it does not matter what pops up. Mulder has an X file related to whatever it is. Did you notice that as you were going through like episodes and rewatching stuff on this, where it's like even something completely unrelated, Mulder has an
Yeah.
X file for it.
Yeah, even if it just has the vaguest of tie-ins, like he just pulls out a file and says, "Yeah, it's this." It's never ever this.
It's like the excuse to get him to be on the case. Like, I can tie this in to my boss that this has something tangentially to do with an X file. Therefore, we're going to show up. Because if you thought about this logically as a viewer, you'd be like, well, how in the world do these two special agents get to do whatever they want? Essentially, just go off in all these weird cases in all these different states and fly around and do all this stuff. X file. It's always an X file. So I like that. I like that there's like local cops that are anti FBI. This is one of the recurring themes, and I think we see this in a subsequent episode as well, where the cops, the local cops, do not like the FBI. They don't want to help Mulder. They feel like they have their jurisdiction, and it's like a common trope in all of these kind of movies and television shows where the local police force doesn't like the feds coming in. I can tell you, as someone who works in this world, that is absolutely 100% accurate. This happens all the fucking time. It pisses me off because I'm always like, wait, aren't we all on the same side here? But when I saw this happen, I was like, yep, yep, that's how it is. That's how it is.
But as long as you've been in that sort of area, is it how it is right now, or has it been somewhat reinforced by tropes like this in television?
That's a good question. That's a good question. I can just kind of say, from my experience, certain law enforcement agencies, if something's in their jurisdiction, they want the glory of the catch. And when the feds sort of butt in on that and say, hey, federal takes precedent over local. And so you get a lot of, uh, you know, drama that occurs where it's like, who gets the glory and the credit. I can guarantee you, if a local police force or something is working a case and the FBI comes in, the FBI are the ones that solve it, and the FBI are the ones that get the headlines for it. Whereas the local police force didn't, and a lot of their people will be sort of be pushed to the side for the feds to come in. So just from my world where I operate in as part of my job, that is 100% accurate. It happens all the time, all the time. It's ridiculous. It's absurd. It's so stupid. And I'm like, hey man, can't we all just be on the same team? Like, I don't care who gets the glory. What were some of the things that you liked about this episode?
Um, I liked. I want to say that this was one of the first times that you get to see how far Mulder would go to find the answer. Like
Oh yeah, yeah.
he sends. I think wasn't this the episode where she or Scully finds a boyfriend, quote unquote. She has to go back to DC to like
Well,
date.
she goes to her godson's birthday party, and there's that great sequence when Mulder tries to get, because when they get there, the cops are like, "You got to get out of here," and Scully's like, "We got to get back to DC," and Mulder like, he's like, "Nah, nah, I'm gonna stay for the weekend," and he's like, "Do you got a date?" And she's like, "Well, I'm gonna go to my godson's birthday party," and then when she gets to the godson's birthday party, her friend is trying to hook her up with a guy that is there. And then Mulder ends up interrupting the date later on. But yeah, and Mulder decides to stay in Atlantic City while she heads off.
Um, I it's other things that I liked was when he met with the homeless guy. I don't. It made me laugh because he meets this homeless guy or a bunch of different homeless guys, and he's asking around like, "Have you heard of this dude that got chewed on a little bit?" And one guy's like, "Yeah, yeah, I know him." Brings him back to this like dirty alley where
Yeah.
trash is everywhere, and then he pulls out like the worst drawn picture of this creature that I've ever seen. It was just like
It is so
barely
bad.
above a stick figure. And Mulder's like, "Yeah, man, I'm here for it."
It
Like,
is
okay,
so bad. I wrote that in my notes. Here's what I wrote exactly. The drawing of the Beast Woman is totally absurd, and it's even more absurd when Mulder shows it to the detective. Because later on, when he's caught, he's arrested because they think he's like a homeless guy. They kind of throw him in the drunk tank. The detective is questioning him, and we got kind of a Jaws situation here. Like the mayor doesn't want to shut down the beaches because of the tourism. Here, the detective doesn't want to let this sort of this information out that these people are being eaten because it'll affect the casino tourism in Atlantic City. So they're trying to keep it hush hush and keep everything going. But Mulder pulls out this stupid drawing that is absolutely, it'll be the thumbnail of this episode. This drawing will be the thumbnail. And it looks, I was like, how could anyone take that seriously? How? It's ridiculous. And
yeah.
then later on, Mulder's looking at that drawing of that Bigfoot with titties, and that's just as bad. It's just as bad.
Well, like it strikes him at that moment, like, "Oh yeah, a gorilla with fucking tits. It's a woman. It's a mom." Like, and he's really staring.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It's weird. It's very very weird. I think they could have done hire an artist to do something a little better than what, because it's just like an outline of
Well,
something.
but it also kind of, or the stinger right before the very beginning or the credits, the thing that kind of lures you in, I thought was really really good.
Mhm.
The way they shot it, and they shot something in a cave, and I'm fully expecting like, yeah, it's a humanoid, maybe it's a man, but I'm expecting like 8 foot, 9 foot tall person, something like that,
Yeah.
as the monster of the week. And then when I saw the drawing, I would have accepted that if the monster of the week had been a larger human being instead of just a skinny kind of junkie and
Great point. Yeah, great point. That would have, yeah, it would have made a lot more sense had that been the case. Um, I'm trying to think. Like, I'm not passionate about this episode because I got to admit I don't really like this episode. This is probably the first episode that was a real miss for me. There are things I do like in it. I think the comedy is pretty good. I love the shot where they're at the Godson's party and the dog is just mowing down on the cake,
yeah,
and they kind of pan away. I was like, that's good. I love when Mulder is sort of attacked by the Beast Woman at a certain point in time, and at the very end of the episode, he's sort of teasing Scully, and she's like, "Keep that up, Mulder, and I'll hurt you like that Beast Woman." The line delivery and some of the humor in this really works for me, but man, I don't know. Like, was there anything else in this episode that you liked? I mean, did you like this
yeah.
episode, or did you not like it?
I was kind of like, it's middling. It was okay. It's fine. There were some things like I laughed at the drawing part. I laughed at gorilla titties. I really liked the paleontologist guy, and he reminded me
Yeah,
of what's his face from that Stephen King movie we just watched, the manager dude. Why can't I remember his name? With
oh,
the terrible accent.
yeah, from oh yeah, yeah. God,
Yeah,
now I can't think of his name.
but,
I know who you're talking about, though. I know who
but
you're
the
talking about.
paleontologist, like he was really giving it his all. Like he was just laying the facts out there, and
Yep.
then his mind changed. And then there was this weird, not trio, but like Dana, Scully, Mulder, the park ranger with his dart gun, and the paleontologist all running around like a Scooby Doo gang. Like I liked it and hated it at the same time.
Yeah. Well, like one of the great mysteries of this episode, and I'll ask you what happened. when he goes into the alley with the homeless guy, and the homeless guy gives him the drawing of of the Beast Woman, and Mulder's like, "Where are you staying?" Or like, "What are you doing tonight?" And he hands him the key to his hotel.
Yeah.
What happened? Did the homeless guy just stay in that hotel? Because they never mention or reference that hotel ever again. I was always curious, like, what did Mulder ever go back to check on that guy at that hotel? Was he just because he goes, they got HBO? And Mulder's like, yeah, they got HBO. And the guy is so excited to go back to the hotel to watch HBO. Um, yeah,
Well, getting a hotel in 1993 with HBO in it was kind of a big deal.
I guess that's
Way back.
true. That's true.
But he just let him stay in the room until the government stopped paying for that room. I guess he just
Yeah.
wanted to get greasy and
Well, also the funny thing about this is it gets kind of glossed over where Mulder gets arrested. So he's literally arrested. He has to call Scully to bail him out of the drunk tank, and then Scully goes to lunch with him or something. And she's kind of like, "Man, you look rough." And he's totally focused on this Beast Woman sort of thing, like, "Oh my God, there's a Bigfoot type thing happening here." And she's like, Mulder, how are you going to explain all of this when you get back? He's like, oh, they dropped the charges. It doesn't matter. I'm like, actually, it matters. You can't be an FBI agent gets arrested in Atlantic City. But those are the kind of things that this show just kind of glosses over, where it's like, these people aren't really in any sort of danger of losing their job. Now, later on, we'll get there. Seasons down the line, perhaps, but early on, it's like these Mulder can do whatever he wants without getting in any trouble whatsoever.
and some of the episodes they have what's his face, Deep Throat, like talking to the FBI heads and
Yeah,
just stating, "Well, you got to keep on letting this clown do whatever he wants to." So I just make the assumption that no matter what wackadoo shit he gets up to, if he's gonna get fired for it, Deep Throat is just showing up, be like, "Hey, he's not
I,
out here looking for aliens. He's not busting into secret facilities. So just let him look for the monkey woman. It'll be
yeah,
all right."
yeah, yeah. He's like, Deep Throat outranks everybody at the FBI. Pay scale wise, grade wise, so he can protect Mulder for a while, and then eventually X can be that guy that helps him out. Um, I thought like the actual reveal of what's happening. So essentially, what's happening is the the thing that killed the guy in the prologue was the male, and now the female has come into Atlantic City to try to scrounge for food because the male of this species, which is just kind of they mentioned kind of like a Neanderthal type thing. Um, the male of the species is gone. She's come in to sort of forage, and Mulder sort of puts two and two together that, oh, well, maybe she has a kid or something, and that's why she's coming in and doing this. Then you sort of see Mulder sees her, and this girl, this actress was actually, they said, pretty much nude the entire time running around, and they had to really try to hide angles so that it would get past the Fox sensors and whatnot. They had to actually like cover up in a skin suit at one point in time. But I think it just kind of plays out kind of lame. Like there's a moment when Mulder goes in, and Mulder's like infatuated with this girl. Like he thinks
Mhm.
this Neanderthal beast woman is like the most beautiful woman he's ever seen. It comes across to me as weird. Did it strike you as weird? Like she like scratches him and jumps on him, and there's like
And
this
then
weird
starts
moment.
like patting on him and stuff. And there was like this connection moment that was straight out of Red Shoe Diaries. Like if they have any more time, they're gonna fuck.
It's weird.
And then he kind of gets swimmy about how he's talking about this chick. Yeah, that was real weird.
It's super weird. Like Mulder's got a kink for beast women, which hey, we don't kink shame here, but it came across as a little weird.
This
Yeah.
is so much better than a bad drawing of gorilla with titties. I'm just gonna lean into it.
And then eventually they sort of track her down. They're trying to find her. She's out in the forest, and like you said, the rangers there, because the park ranger guy was pretty cool. There you get that scene early on when Mulder goes out there on his own. He's kind of looking. He tells the story of like he saw something, right? And at this point, the
Yeah, that
audience
was
is
a
like,
good story.
"Oh yeah, yeah." At this point, we as audience members are like, "God, I cannot wait until Bigfoot shows up or something," and you get the monster. We never get it. It's the girl runs off. She gets tagged with the dart by the park ranger, but before Mulder and Scully and them can get there, the detective who's been running Atlantic City trying to get this woman shoots her dead, and Mulder is very upset that she was killed. And then sort of like the tag at the very end is that it turns out that Mulder was correct. She does have a child, and there's another like a little kid sort of pops her head out of this cave or whatever, as these people walk by talking about, hey, my dad told me the story of the Jersey Devil. So that was it. And you said you kind of like this one
I
overall.
mean, I didn't hate it, and there was some moments in it where like, okay, this is pretty bad, but I like shit like that, so it gets a pass from me.
Okay, that's cool. This one just didn't strike my fancy. I didn't like it. I was still a little disappointed. I appreciate now kind of what Chris Carter was trying to do. He was trying to do something unique and different and not so obvious, a Bigfoot or monster sort of thing. I did read about a little bit about this episode on Wikipedia, and it said that Chris Carter read an essay about whether mankind was destined to destroy itself and decided to take that idea and create an episode about a missing link rather than a traditional Bigfoot. So it was an idea originally that he was going to make it a monster, but this article lent a different story, which again I appreciate that he went that route. I guess I just can't shake my disappointment that that's what it turned out to be, especially since we didn't see this girl really like gnawing on anybody or eating anybody or anything.
Just dumpster diving. That's it.
Yeah, just dumpster diving. Funny enough, I noticed this when I watched it. Did you notice the scene of Mulder in the casino? Did it look a little weird to you?
I'm I
Do you remember
Nope,
that?
I don't.
There's a short sequence with Mulder in a casino, and it looks awful. It just looks terrible. It turns out that was shot on blue screen. They never actually shot anything in a casino. They just put him on a blue screen in Vancouver, and then just put generic casino footage behind him, and it looks awful. It's a really bad effect. And then one thing I did find was kind of interesting here is that we get a little bit more of Scully's insight into Mulder, and we find out later on in subsequent episodes how this comes into play. But at the Godson's party, the friend actually turns to Scully because she's like, "Hey, Scully, when are you going to have kids? You got to have kids at some point, right?" And Scully's like, "I'm too busy, with my job and everything like that. I don't have time." And the friend says, "Well, what about your partner? You said he was cute." And that's kind of like the very first instance we get that Scully might have, she might at least she finds Mulder at least attractive in some way. She doesn't play it off that she's like head over heels for him or anything like that. But Chris Carter said that he wanted to show Scully going on a date to show what her life would be if she passed up sort of being Mulder's partner and dedicated to her work. So you do get those sorts of moments with Scully here where she kind of like, here's the other path I could take. I could like, meet a guy, settle down, have some kids, but that would take my career off in a completely different direction, which I thought was interesting. So there's moments in this episode that I like. I guess I just don't like the payoff of what the monster ended up being.
But she's so beautiful.
I guess I've never had a beast woman like that on top of me after she's tried to rip out my kidney. Maybe I would think, maybe I would feel differently if I had a beast woman on top of me. Um, so, anything else that you wanted to mention about this particular episode? I don't have tons to talk about with it because I just didn't really like it all that much.
No, I think we've talked it to death.
All right, so that's our take on the Jersey Devil. Different takes here. I didn't like it. Jeremy thought it was okay, but we are gonna roll into episode next week, which is episode 6. This is titled Shadows. So stay tuned next Friday on Outpost Unknown, and we'll tell you all about shadows. See you then.